Mr. President, for decades, even centuries, America's universities have been the envy of the world and one of America's biggest comparative advantages. At their best, they are hubs for innovative thinking, places where free exchange of ideas are not only encouraged but expected on campus. They have been the backbones of innovations that have changed countless lives in America and really across the world for the better. Now, of course, freedom of speech is enshrined in the First Amendment of our Constitution. The birth of our nation was the result of our founding fathers escaping tyranny in pursuit of freedom of thought and expression. And since the inception of our country, we have prevailed over every country and empire that we have competed with, in part because of America's commitment to the free exchange of ideas. And our universities have traditionally amplified this long-standing American ideal and comparative advantage. But unfortunately, Mr. President, this is changing. Today, it is becoming increasingly clear that many of our universities too often stamp out the exchange of ideas for certain politically correct narratives. This is having a chilling effect on our students, on campus, and most importantly, their ability to express themselves. Let me present some disturbing findings. A recent Gallup survey of 3,000 undergraduate students found that 81% of students widely support a campus environment where they are exposed to all types of speech, even speech they find offensive, 81%. However, that same survey found that only 59% of college students believe that free speech rights are secure, and that's down from 73% just 4 years ago. Mr. President, that same survey also found that 63% of university students in America agree that the climate on their campus deters students from expressing themselves openly. Almost 2/3 of American students. It's remarkable. It's dangerous, not just for university life, but for American life. And I believe it's unacceptable. Fortunately, we can do something about it with the simple amendment that I have offered today. This bill that we're debating right now, the Endless Frontiers Act, will be sending billions, tens of billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, to America's universities. My amendment says in return for these billions of dollars, when applying for National Science Foundation funds, universities will be required to attest that they are protecting free speech, religious liberty, and prohibiting discrimination on campus, and explain what steps they are taking to ensure compliance. That's it. A letter to the NSF once a year for billions in federal research dollars. Now, Mr. President, already we're hearing that some universities oppose my amendment, calling it, quote, burdensome. Well, here it is. It's 2 pages. It's simple. It's easy. This university opposition actually illustrates the problem that in exchange for billions of dollars in federal research money, America's universities can't be bothered to demonstrate to Congress and the American people that they are committed to the principles of the First Amendment, which, by the way, have made our country and our universities so exceptional. Mr. President, censorship, oppression, and one-sided thoughts are characteristics of communist China, not America, and certainly should not be the characteristics of America's great universities. To the contrary, one of the most important ways to compete with and win against communist China is to ensure that America, and yes, our universities, remain what they have traditionally been: laboratories of free expression, free thought, creativity, innovation, and ingenuity. My simple amendment will help make sure this happens, and I encourage all of my colleagues to vote yes to support this amendment and American free liberty, free thinking, and innovation.
Under the previous order, there will now be 2 minutes of debate, equally divided prior to the vote on Sullivan Amendment 1911.
Mr. President,
Senator from Washington.
I rise today in opposition to S. 1911. It is an amendment that claims to be about protecting free speech, but that could actually have a very chilling effect on speech at our institutions of higher education. I share the goal of fostering campus environments that protect free speech and the free exchange of ideas. But I have multiple concerns with the way this amendment goes about advancing those goals. It is not the role of the National Science Foundation or the Inspector General of the National Science Foundation to police speech on campuses. Deciding what is appropriate regulation of speech should not be left to agencies that are not experts in constitutional analysis or in issues related to First Amendment protections at our institutions of higher education. I believe it would be a mistake to use today's amendment to make substantial change without the opportunity for input from students, educators, and stakeholders. I've heard from many institutions of higher education, as well as civil rights groups, who strongly share my concerns. So I urge my colleagues to vote no.
Mr. President,
Senator from Alaska.
with all due respect to my colleague from Washington, when the universities say they can't do this because it's too burdensome, again, to me that actually demonstrates the very problem my simple amendment is trying to resolve. All it is saying is, in exchange for the tens of billions of dollars that America's universities will be getting as part of the Endless Frontiers Act, they have to do one simple thing. Once a year, send a letter to the National Science Foundation saying, and this is in the amendment right here, they are committed to protecting free speech, viewpoint diversity, the free exchange of ideas, academic freedom, and the protection of religious liberty and the prohibiting against discrimination. That's it. That's it, Mr. President. It's very simple. This is what universities should be doing. It's a letter once a year. It's very simple in exchange for billions and billions of federal research dollars. I certainly hope all of my colleagues will support this amendment. Simple, needed, and again, this is how we outcompete Communist China, which is all about what the Endless Frontiers Act is focused on. So I encourage my colleagues to vote yes.